Oh man, I forgot how good that was. I'm going to have to watch that again later. Alright, so Middle Africa has capitulated. And there we go. So the Entente is making some serious gains against the Reichspakt. Now the Mediterranean truly is the battleground between them. And we are seeing port strikes happening against the British now. We've got Canadian port strikes coming in and hitting the Spanish and the British navies. So I think that this is in preparation for a naval invasion by the Entente powers. It's got to be. Because we've seen the effectiveness of the French invasion over here. I wouldn't be that surprised if we're seeing this being handed over. Yep, these are the infantry. And the French motorized marines are nowhere to be seen. They are completely gone. And I wonder where they could possibly have gone to. It's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. So the American heavy tanks are still here. I wonder at this point how many heavy tanks America actually has. I'm guessing 8. Yes, 8. Under Clarence Hubner with 9 attack. Ooh. Alright, Clarence Hubner is pretty darn good. They could even give him offensive doctrine for another +1 attack. That does count. The Orgloss while moving wouldn't, because it's technically a field marshal trait. But that +1 attack counts even if you're not a field marshal. I'm actually really surprised that they've not taken offensive doctrine on him. And he doesn't even have Panzer Leader yet. He's getting it. He's more than halfway. This is a really good tank general. Like, really good. Impressive. And he's under the command of Eisenhower, who is a logistics wizard. Yeah, I was hoping I would see that, because these units are going to require a lot of supply. An awful lot of supply, and logistics wizard's going to help reducing that requirement. Oh, we have the Italian invasion of Sardinia. We have American troops who are on the ball, though, and should be able to repulse that pretty quickly. Meanwhile, the invasion of Sweden continues. The British do seem to have set up a defensive line to try to repulse the Reichspakt assaults. We've got German troops, we've got Danish troops, we've got Italian troops, we've got Austrians, Iraqis, Ukrainians. Lots and lots of different... Oh, and Bulgarians also up here. We've got the German heavy tanks out in force. In fact, I think this might even be all of the German heavy tanks, because there are a significant portion of them in this fight at the moment. So we saw that America has 8 heavy tanks. I'm using generals, Germany, for Pete's sake. Not using field marshals and not using generals. I don't get it. Like, it's not like you're short on generals or anything. Here we go, Fedor von Bock, 6 of them. Is that all of them? Everything else, just garrison infantry. Oh no, they've got... Yeah, that's it. This is the only unit that's under a field marshal and a general. Nothing else apparently matters to the Germans. Air superiority escort mission wings. With this mission will fight disrupting the air wings operating the area. The air superiority mission doubles as an escort mission protecting bombers. Inception, yeah, but that doesn't say anything about the bonuses. Like, what does the air superiority bonus do? That's what we want to know. Oh, and we are starting to see German... Wait, those are German tanks, then whose are these? Oh, those are Bulgarian heavy tanks. I stand corrected. So Bulgaria actually has a decent setup. Even though they are lumping all of their good troops in this one division. They are exploiting the living daylights out of the garrison exploit, but yeah. does mean that they're never going to have... Man, they have a 63% planning prep, and you're not using it at all. So yes, they have units all over the place is basically what this is saying. And they are at least getting the Field Marshal and General buffs, unlike the Germans. And it was mostly Bulgarian armor, with Bulgarian mechanized and Bulgarian marines who are assisting in the attack on Norway. These are all going to be very heavy units, though. I'm guessing they were expecting to face more heavy opposition. I wonder if Britain's even using anti-tank in these infantry divisions. Nope. Okay. Denmark taking its land back. Oh. And the clearing up of Middle Africa is going very nicely. We've got a large chunk of Brazilian land. South Africa will have gained a lot from this. South Africa is not a player, so this is all just going to the AI at the moment. But actually having South Africa with troops in Africa isn't necessarily a bad thing, because they will just defend Africa for you. Meanwhile, Co-Pro just biding their time. Waiting to see if either the Entente or the Reichspakt make a misstep somewhere, because this is all Reichspakt versus Entente right now. The Entente have opened up another nice little front down here in Syria. You've got the Reichspakt finishing off the Third Internationale in Sweden. You have another German invasion going on in Norway at the moment. And it doesn't really look like the Third Internationale have anything that can really stop this. And I'd be kind of interested to see what the scores are at the moment. Because for a long time I really felt like the Reichspakt were going to be in the lead, but it's the Entente that have been taking a lot of the victory points, I want to say. So if you type in !KR scores, you can see the scores on the doors at the moment, and at the moment the Reichspakt are leading. They have 10 points, Third Internationale have 3, the Entente have 4, and Co-Pro have only 2. So Co-Pro are actually in last at the moment, with the Reichspakt very much in first place currently. They said every time you're not using planning preparation, Mordred loses 1 cup of tea. I mean, a lot of the way, I get why people don't use battle plans. I do. I honestly get it. What I don't get is why people don't just set up the lines and then make use of the buffs. And then make use of command power to just recharge them every time you do a charge. Especially if you're using smaller units, as these heavy tanks are just like 6 or 7 divisions. It's never going to cost you a lot of command power to recharge the planning prep. And that Bulgaria is wasting a whopping 63% planning preparation. I don't get it. That's 63% more attack. 63% more damage. And in a game where people are always like min-maxing to the absolute utmost extent to get as many bonuses they can possibly squeeze out of their units, and then they don't use planning preparation. It's just like, why? Even more bizarre is not using generals or field marshals. That's just inept. Why are players allowed to use exploits in multiplayer games? They're not unless it's something explicitly allowed. Because it's impossible to stop. Would be why. Like, actually, like, catching people doing what Bulgaria is doing there would be pretty easy to catch. You just need an observer to go in and say, oh, you're doing the thing. Stop doing the thing. But it's kind of so ingrained into multiplayer that you have to exploit in order to win. That's the problem with these competitive games. That's why I'm not usually a huge fan in playing them, because I have no interest in exploiting the game. Play it the way I want to play it, not the way I have to play it to win. But that's also why these multiplayer games are interesting to commentate, because you see how other people do stuff. You might not agree with it, but it's still interesting to see it. And then you get moments like Naval Ireland, which is something I'd never even considered, where I'm just like, you know what, that's a damn good idea and I want to try that myself sometime. Oh dear. Out of sync. Every 50 points of air superiority advantage as a strategic region gives a +1 air support malus to enemy land combat. Those maluses are to breakthrough and defense. What are the casualties like? That's a good question. We should check that. The Reichspakt side have lost 2.7 million. The Entente side have lost 2.4 million. In fact, let's break this down. So, Reichspakt have lost 1.8 million versus... Oh, that's still just those. There we go. Third International have lost 1.5 million. The German side has lost 900,000. And then the Co-Prosperity Sphere have lost 189,000 against 174,000. This is basically not actually a war. And then we have the Entente versus Reichspakt, which have lost 751,000 against 1.8 million. Yes, I can show you the faction map, absolutely. So this is what the world looks like at the moment. We've got the Entente, very well established in North America, South America, although Chile is Third International, interestingly. So the Entente may well try to naval invade that. And then the Entente is also dominant in Africa. They've now taken pretty much the whole thing. We may well see them declaring war on Somalia, Ethiopia and Eritrea just to take those out. And then there is a front starting to open in the Middle East. We've got the Reichspakt pushing north into Northern Europe, which is Third International territory. And then CoPro is basically everything else. And then there's poor old Australasia looking horribly isolated. Down in Southeast Asia as well. You can tell that Golden are good players that play hard to find for multiplayer a lot in the Third Internationals group and Group C versus the Third Internationals of every other group. I mean, the Third International is probably one of the more advanced setups that you need to know. Entente's probably the easiest. No, Reichspakt is probably the easiest. In terms of how well you need to know the countries and stuff. Co-Prosperity, you need to know a little bit about like how the China Civil War functions, but otherwise I would say the Co-Pro is probably second after Reichspakt in terms of easiness, then Entente, then Third Eye. Yes, we'd like to see you play in Naval Island. I might have to do that, because it does look interesting. Sub-Island, best island. Can't find anything other than what Tannhaus typed up there about fighter buffs directly for anti-fighter. I don't think it exists. I don't think that there are buffs for anti-fighter. The only anti-fighter buffs are agility. Which is why having that agility increase is so important. And then maybe aces, because they also buff agility. But in terms of like mission effectiveness for shooting down other fighters, I don't think it exists. So one thing I am curious about is just generally in multiplayer, how the different players are handling resistance. So Germany in particular has taken a lot of land, as has Ukraine. Oh, I think things may have just heated up. Alright, let's bring in the sound again. Turn off Miracle of Sound. Here we go. Right, Ukraine. I want to switch over to you. I want to see what's going on here. So this is the Russian assault. And we will take a proper look at that in just a minute to see what is involved. They are on civilian oversight everywhere. Huge amount of compliance in Poland. They do have a lot of resistance in Iberia, and that is what I was wondering about, because they're going to be losing a lot of equipment and a lot of manpower to this. Because this is a lot. And they do have special units set up for that. What about Germany? Because I'm wondering if I'm the only one that's so aggressive about using martial control. They're on secret police. Yeah, okay. So no, Germany takes a more similar approach to how I do this. But even then, they've lost 108,000 manpower in the last year and 12,000 worth of equipment. So no, they are struggling a little. And Bulgaria would be the other big one. 100% compliance in Romania, though. Local police force, they're using that as a standard. Actually, their resistance levels are super low. And they are getting a lot of compliance. Like, this is the importance of getting that in compliance. Compliance will basically directly counter resistance. In fact, with compliance being so... Sorry, with resistance being so low, they could probably quite safely change to civilian at this point. Right, Russia, what are you doing? Heavy tanks, heavy tanks, heavy tanks, heavy tanks. How many heavy tanks is Russia throwing into this right now? Where are they all? 13 divisions of heavy tanks are being used. Bearing in mind that Bulgaria has, what, 6? Germany had 8. Russia had, or America had like 8. So 13 heavy tanks is a lot of heavy tanks. But they're not using a field marshal. Come on! Nor are they using planning preparation. They've had 4 fricking ever to set up planning preparation. Like, there is no excuse for that. They could have been setting up planning preparation against, like, Georgia, then switch them over here if they were worried about hiding their intentions. So right now their attacks are generally failing. They are pushing in one location, they are pushing in the second location. But in most of this, the Ukrainian defense forces are holding, and I'm guessing these are just 40 combat width Ukrainian beasts. No, actually 20 combat width with engineers, and that's it. Interesting. But they are properly set up. Again, using the similar feature that Bulgaria were using. And right now, it does look like they're defending everywhere. They're bringing in a bunch of reinforcements just to rebuild these lines. They do have German heavy tanks in the area, ready to counter any of the Russian heavy tanks where they may appear. And I want to take a quick look at the Russian heavy tank divisions. Hello? Click on the Russians and see if these are actually any good. They also haven't bothered training them. That is a lot of heavy tanks. 25 organization, which is a bit on the low side. 1,358 breakthrough, though, with 111 armor, so that is going to be difficult to kill. And their piercing is only 106, so if they come up against something similar, then they would not pierce that, which is why sometimes you do want to mix in heavy tank destroyers, so you can pierce enemies with heavy tanks. The Germans, on the other hand, have got more organization. They've gone for 30 organization. Their piercing is 114, so they can pierce the armor. And Germany is actually doing a counterattack here. Germany is broken across the river, is being countered by a couple of the Russian heavy tanks who are moving in to try and fight this. But the German tanks cannot have their armor pierced, and the Russians are just not able to push them. And Germany is going for another push here. They are trying to get an encirclement, although they would not be able to encircle very much because they can just escape via Crimea. So I'm not entirely sure why they're trying to push this right now, except for the fact that they're just doing damage to those very, very squishy Russian tanks. And we're kind of seeing here the superiority of the German units against the Russian units. The Russians have so little organization and no armor pierce capabilities, really. Although these German units have not a lot of armor because they have gone for a lot more motorized. Once those start switching out for mechanized, I think that these are going to become a lot more tankier. And they could actually increase the armor even more by using light armor, recon. A little surprised they're using motorized. That generally just increases the speeds. So, meanwhile, the push against the Commune of France continues. Although a large portion of the I think they're scrambling a bit because they've recognised that Copro is waking up. The bear has awakened. And have moved most of their troops away from the assault on Sweden. And the Spanish Swedes, currently retaking France. Yeah, that will make sense in the context. Are retaking Sweden for the French. And the Third Internationale has somehow survived again. Meanwhile, we are seeing a very large portion of Reichspakt shipping shifting over here to Beirut, where I'm guessing that there is a plan to push south again. We do have Bulgarian heavy mechanized units guarding the borders here, but no heavy tanks in that region as yet. Meanwhile, the Germans have pushed across again, and the Russians are having to dedicate a fair bit of their armour to just stopping these pushes. Not really sure what Germany is playing for here, because they've just abandoned Kherson completely with their defenders. And they've been pushed back again, the infantry units are retreating, and Kherson is now open. If those heavy tanks recognise that, they could probably beat the infantry there and get an overrun. But they didn't, and they attacked too late. And now the German tanks are moving somewhere else. The other problem with this is they've just lost their entrenchment buff. So if they attack Kherson with enough force right now, they might actually be able to push a crossing here. Because it is just those two infantry units defending this. And air superiority is solidly on the is on the Reichspakt side. They're doing a ton of damage with air force. And this looks like it may actually... I mean, it's green. We are seeing this from the German perspective at the moment. So that would be red for the Russians. But the Russians are trying that. They've sensed that moment of weakness. Meanwhile, we're seeing the Ukrainians moving in to buffer themselves against the Spanish counterattack. So that attack has kind of come to naught. The last little pocket of Germans in Middle Africa are about to be extinguished. We have Paraguay losing to Brazil. Naval invasion going on Reykjavik at the moment. We have American Marines probing the Icelandic English garrison. But not really making any particular... Oh no, this is red for them. No, this is good for the Americans. The Americans might actually be able to push Iceland here. Unless... I mean, here's the... I don't understand why America's not attacking both of these ports at once, because England could see this and then just start shipping in reinforcements via this port. Like, you want to be hitting both of these at once. It's a very, very low-key naval invasion. They're probably just hoping that they can get away with it without the Union of Britain noticing, especially because things are still heating up quite a bit in Sweden. Oh! Is that a breakthrough? I'm not sure. Yeah, it is. This used to be the line. So the Russians have actually managed to push the Germans and Ukrainians across by Mogilev. But the German armour has arrived and they are starting to push back. 6 units of heavy tanks, showing them back again. Probably going to try and get in behind and then get these guys cut off if they can achieve it. And we do have German tanks over on that side as well, but they seem to be going in here. And that is indeed a cut-off. And the German tanks are currently pushing back the Russian tanks in Vitebsk. And this would be actually an opportunity for a counterattack by the Reichspakt if they wanted to. But it looks like the Bulgarian and the German tanks have arrived in sufficient numbers. In fact, these are all German. And are beating the Russians with their lack of organisation at every turn. I think India's a little bit paranoid about naval invasions. Just a thought. Possibly that there's a little bit of paranoia going on here in India. I mean, they have the manpower for it, so why not? And here we go, Germany doing exactly what I kind of foresaw them doing. Although, oh man, they almost got cut off there. That was some nice reactions there by the Germans, but they are seeing where the weaknesses are. And this is very much a game of cat and mouse between the German tanks and the Russian tanks. And right now, the Russian tanks have the momentum because they have the organization and are able to push the Germans back. Except they're not. German tanks are unpierceable by the regular infantry units, but I don't know about the tanks. I want to see another tank battle because I want to see if either side can pierce the other's armor. I think both sides can because the German tanks don't have as much armor as the Russian tanks, and the Russian tanks don't have as much piercing, but that shouldn't matter. Here we go, tank battle. Piercing, piercing. So yes, both tanks can pierce the armor of the other, and that kind of puts the advantage in Germany's side, because the Russians have less organization. And generally where we see the heavy tanks of both factions facing off on like equal footing, the Germans generally win, as we are seeing right here. Also it helps that Fedor von Bock is just an absolute beast when it comes to his stats, while Vasilevsky is still kind of learning. Although this is not the American tank general. Oh, but China has seen an opportunity here. The Germans are kind of being left snoozing a little bit, and China is trying to cut across here in order to surround these 3 tanks. And if they put some extra pressure on this unit, which these infantry are now doing, that could be an opportunity to surround these. The Russian tanks are coming in with a pinning action against Vitebsk. We've got units trying to push across here. These tanks have been pushed back. Oh, no, they haven't. Sorry, no, they haven't. And these guys will let go. They are coming back. Have they done it? That's Rush. Because these guys are moving. And I think the Russians are just kind of letting them do it. And yeah, they've moved in. This is a surround of 3 German heavy tanks here. Russia has seen an excellent opportunity, but Germany got in 2 extra tanks just in the nick of time. And Germany was able to save themselves from the plight of the potential surround. But man, that came close. And that would have been a very, very costly occasion there. We're seeing some Danish troops trying to push across into Kurasari, but they're not going to be able to do that. And then we have this minor river crossing over here as well, which nothing seems to be happening with. Can I have a look at the Bulgarian mech? Of course I can. If I can find any of them. It's Mustache Man. So the Bulgarian mech have gone down to a measly... Oh no, and he got wounded! This is because I'm looking at him. Streamer curse. They are using heavy tank destroyers plus mechanized infantry. These are really good defensive units. They have 106 piercing, which is not enough. Just not enough to pierce the Russian armor, I think. 106, and Russia's armor is... I can find one.